Welcome to Urban Grown Stories, the companion podcast for the Urban Grown Tour hosted by Cultivate KC. You will hear from urban farmers, growers, and advocates across the Kansas City metro area. From the history of local food in KC to the challenges that new farmers face and the impactful ways you can get involved in our local food system. This story collection will leave you inspired, informed, and hungry for change.
In this episode, we visit Bread and Rose's farm to hear from Flora. This is their story.
I'm Flora Mahaffey, and this is Bread and Rose's farm in Washington Wheatley, neighborhood of Kansas City. It was originally just with some vacant lots, and I lived across the alley from them, and I was a big gardener, and they came up on the tax auction, and it really just started as trying to grow food for myself and people I knew, and that eventually other people came to help as well, and it became a bigger garden for many years, but it was always a little too big for us to handle. So at some point I decided, what if I could turn it into a farm and at least pay myself to be here and take care of it. And that was about, I think maybe 8 years ago. It's one of the things I have always loved about Kansas City. And one of the reasons I ended up living where I do is just all that space and green space. I love green space, but it's nice. Yeah, it's nice when it's something besides just grass. And it also wasn't even grass back then because it was just mowed by the city about once a year. So it was a place that was, upsetting to the neighbors. Just like huge weeds, basically. It's honestly smaller now than it was then in terms of who actually comes to work here, because we spend more time on growing now than we used to, which is nice in its own way. Overall, it looks a lot nicer. The space is better taken care of, so I do think it's more enjoyable for people who are just around it. We're right by a school, so tons of kids walk by every day and with their parents, and I think it is nicer in that sense now. There's to just walk by a nicely taken care of space. We always make sure there's flowers at the front. We've definitely had some over the years. It depends who's walking to school, but we have had some big fans over the years. There was a kid who would save his quarters and come to the farm stand and get stuff, and there was also some kids that did gardening at school and loved to come through and show what they know. And amazing. When a kid picks with themselves, you'll see them just like take a bite out of a raw turnip and say that it's great, which is always surprising to their parents. Where we're sitting right now, which is behind our high tunnel, is kind of our original garden space where we started. So it's been here the longest. It's also the most well set up. We have a high tunnel, we have irrigation, less weeds, sort of. We have, our giant pear tree that's now however many years old, covered in hundreds of pears. So this is like the original spot. It also tends to be where we grow the kind of more profitable market garden type crops that you grow here. All our roots and greens, salad mix, carrots, beets are all really happy here. And then there's two lots on the corner, around the corner from here. They were just for sale for a long time, and I eventually bought them from the people that were selling them. And probably had those around 6 or 7 years. And so that's kind of a fun space. We don't have irrigation there. it's newer, it's a little weedier, so we get to practice more dry farming and just like large scale style farming on a small scale over there. So that's really cool too. Um, it's also just a really beautiful place. It came with two big catalpa trees that bloom, and that one faces the school, so that's kind of fun too. And then going around more is there's a next to my house is a big fruit orchard that a friend of mine planted when it was his house many years ago, and when so I moved there last year and got to kind of inherit this great fruit growing orchard that is it's got a lot of Asian pears. It's got a cherry tree and a apple tree on the tree. So that's kind of the newest. That's what I've only had that a year, so we'll be growing more things. But it comes with this really great setup of um, fruit trees that are already producing. Yeah, it's great. There's a lot of fruit now. Well, I think for now we're just holding steady. Long term, I think we will need to kind of transition back to a community project if we're going to keep this going. Um, I just we've made a go of it for sure. I don't think farming on this scale can ever actually be profitable for most people. Profitable enough to pay themselves, pay anyone else to help. Um, and I'm getting a little too old to just throw my whole self at that problem physically anymore. Um, which that that's how we got it through. I think if we can find a way to transition back, we'll be in a much better place than we were because our um, systems are set up a lot nicer. The land has been cared for better. I think it. I think it. I've learned so much. I grow so much better now than I did when I was just kind of growing for myself and letting things go because I didn't have time. I've really learned how to get more out of this. Um, it's it's been really great, and I like where the land is at now. And I think long term we have to find a way to bring it back to a big community to make it work. And I think that'll be cool, figure out how to do that slowly but surely. I hope it'll go a little better to be like, look, we're growing all this stuff. You can take home as many pears as you want. Not like, here's this crazy lot full of weeds. Please help us. It'll be it's nice to be able to show people what can happen here. Like we have, um, we just like have the model. We can look at it. It's not just a vision or an idea or something. We have a lot growing, and I think that will appeal to people. I can see that it's the next step, but we're not quite there yet. We're just still, you know, still doing the CSA thing for now. We've definitely seen a big jump um, in people who are interested this year, and that's great. It's honest, like we can't expand that much more because of um, like we can't pay people competitively here. So it's always a toss up. It's like if we charged way more for our CSA, that would be one way to do it, and that would make it um, out of reach for the people who supported us since we started. I mean, we have members who did it the very first year when they had 8 people who are still here, and we have a lot of members who've been doing it for a long time, and um, supported us while we were just figuring out how to grow. And they're they did enjoy their first year's produce, obviously, because they came back. But I think um, the quality is like so much higher now. And but they've stuck with us that whole time, And if we have a bad week where we don't have anything or a crop failure, they've stuck with us. And So we have to balance between keeping those people as part of our shares, being able to, pay a living wage to anyone. Well, we definitely would invite anyone to come by Fridays. Friday mornings, we do our farm stand, and then we also always have volunteer opportunities then. So it's good time. 9 to 11 is the stand, and when you can expect us to be here. And, we're always happy to give a tour, chat, or hang out. We'll always have food on the table.
Food for thought. How can you help support your local food system? Start with buying local through CSAs or your local farmers market. Volunteer at your local growing space, cultivate your own food, or voice your support of urban growing to your elected officials. Visit cultivatekc.org/urban-grown-stories for more information. For more on the growing site featured in today's episode, please check the show notes. Thank you for listening to Urban Grown Stories, a podcast brought to you by Cultivate KC in partnership with KC BizCare. Urban Grown Stories is hosted and produced by Jessica Garcia, with interviews recorded and edited by Kara Harpstreet, a Kansas Local Food Fellow with K-State Research and Extension. Production and editing support from Eric Hemphill and Ami Freeberg, with intros provided by Cultivate KC staff. Keep growing, Kansas City.